Market snapshot: equities are up, treasuries are flattening, crude is down, the dollar is down, and gold is down. Rear view: the US and China have agreed on a framework for a deal. China is expected to delay new rare earth export controls. The US has signed trade deals with Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, and Malaysia. Zelensky says Ukraine will expand strikes against Russian refineries. There was a soft US 2-year note auction and a strong 5-year auction. Trump says he might sign a final deal on TikTok on Thursday. The German IFO data was mixed. Qualcomm unveiled AI chips. KDP beat expectations. Coming up: data releases scheduled. German GfK, November, Richmond Fed, October. Suspended releases. US consumer confidence, October. Events scheduled. ECB-SCE, Sept, US President Trump to meet Japanese PM Takaichi. Speakers scheduled. RBNZ's Richardson. Supply. Australia, Italy, UK, Germany, US. Earnings releases scheduled. Bloom Energy, Visa, Electronic Arts, PPG Industries, United Health, Sophie, PayPal, UPS, DR Horton, VF Corp, HSBC, BNP Paribas, Novartis, Logitech, Iberdrola, and ASM International. More information is available in 2 steps. Subscribe to the free Pre-Market Movers Reports trial, a premium real-time audio news service for 7 days. Market wrap: US indices were higher, supported by risk-on sentiment at the start of the week, following reports that the US and China agreed on a framework for a trade deal ahead of the Trump-Xi meeting later this week. Spot gold was sold and fell below $4,000 per ounce as a result, while crude oil was initially bid but later sold off to settle in the red. In FX, the dollar was mostly flat, with the Aussie outperforming and havens lagging due to the trade updates. The loonie was flat, with USD/CAD trading in a narrow range despite Trump imposing an additional 10% tariff amid the latest anti-tariff advert. T-notes flattened in risk on trade and front-loaded supply, with mixed 2- and 5-year auctions today, ahead of the 7-year on Tuesday, before the FOMC on Wednesday. Newsflow was light to start the week but will increase with Fed, BOJ, ECB, and BOC meetings this week, the Trump-Xi meeting, and earnings reports from 5 of the Mag 7 companies. Sectors were mostly green, with communications leading gains, followed by tech and discretionary, while consumer staples and materials were the only sectors in the red. Qualcomm, QCOM, surged after announcing the launch of Qualcomm AI200 and AI250 chip-based accelerator cards and racks for data centers. Fixed income T-note futures, Z5, settled half a tick lower at 113 to 13 plus. T-notes flattened in risk on trade and front-loaded supply. At settlement, 2-year notes were plus 1.3 bits per second at 3.497%, 3-year notes were plus 1.2 bits per second at 3.500%, 5-year notes were plus 0.9 bits per second at 3.611%, 7-year notes were 0.0 bits per second at 3.783%, 10-year notes were minus 0.6 bits per second at 3.991%, 20-year notes were minus 1.6 bits per second at 4.540%, and 30-year notes were minus 2.0 bits per second at 4.566%. Inflation BREAKEVENS. 1-year BEI plus 0.1 bits per second at 3.121%, 3-year BEI minus 1.3 bits per second at 2.579%, 5-year BEI minus 1.3 bits per second at 2.328%, 10-year BEI minus 2.2 bits per second at 2.273%, 30-year BEI minus 0.1 bits per second at 2.221%. The day. T-notes started the session lower amid risk on trade following optimism from US-China talks over the weekend, ahead of the presidential meeting on Thursday. However, the long end managed to recover to see the 10 years settle flat with the curve flatter on the session. There had also been a plethora of corporate issuance on Monday, while the Treasury sold 2- and 5-year notes, more below, ahead of the 7-year issuance on Tuesday before the FOMC on Wednesday. The Federal Reserve decision and U.S.-China talks are the key focus of traders this week, with the FOMC expected to cut rates by 25 bits per second while it is also expected to make alterations to its balance sheet process. Meanwhile, on trade after the optimism expressed over the weekend, the US and China agreed on the framework of a potential trade deal that will be discussed between Xi and Trump on Thursday. This includes a final deal on TikTok's US operations and a deferral on China's tightened rare earth controls. This has set up expectations for an extension of the current trade truce between the US and China, providing the talks go well on Thursday. Supply notes the U.S. Treasury sold 69 United States dollars BLN of 2-year notes at a high yield of 3.504%, a lower yield when compared to the prior 3.571%. This tailed the when issued by 0.1 bits per second, marking the first tail in the 2-year issuance since April. The bid to cover was in line with the 6 auction average at 2.59x, above the 2.51x PR.